for Baylor.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, Grayson Grundhafer, normally, Sick'em365.com. He does the Bearcast with Craig on Tuesdays up on the site, and also recruiting analyst with his segment with us Fridays, but early this week. And just a few minutes with Grayson. Grayson, what was your thoughts on how the Baylor offense, against a team they should hammer, but the way that they showed the ability to open up, no matter who the competition was, and able to stretch the field a little bit with Gerry Bohanon?
Yeah, I thought that was a really positive sign. I mean, I don't see how you could look at it any other way than that. I mean, they clearly took those shots in the Texas State game, weren't able to capitalize on them, but in this game they did. And I think that was a real positive. They ran the ball extremely well, and that helped open up things over the top, and Gerry was accurate with the deep ball this week. I think they're going to get challenged significantly more going forward. But I would say I think it's nice to see that on film. Nice to see Gerry go out there and look really comfortable in the pocket, the offensive line giving him a nice pocket, and then him delivering an accurate deep ball. So, yeah, I think they opened up some things, were able to take some shots deep just like they did against Texas State. And it's very clear, guys, this team is going to run their offense, and they're going to continue to run their offense until someone forces them to have to do, things a little bit differently. But yeah, I've been very impressed with this team over the past 2 weeks, especially last week as they took care of business.
Grayson, does anything bother you about Kansas? I mean, their quarterback's pretty mobile, but they're still way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, they're not a very good team at all. And so I think it's just one of those things where you really have to kind of look at them and go, okay, they're not that talented, but they're still a Big 12 team. They're still a team that can absolutely give teams problems. And you saw that a little bit against Coastal Carolina. I felt like they were challenged a little bit, and I felt like Coastal was kind of off balance a little bit because of Kansas's ability to just control time of possession and really take care of the football and do a nice job of running their offense the way that they needed to. I think they're well coached, and I think they're a team that is going to try to play ball control football. And unfortunately for them, I think they're facing a Baylor team that kind of wants to do the same thing and has been more successful at it and has had more time with it under Jeff Grimes. And they're, both teams run the wide zone, and so there's some similarities there. But I don't see Kansas giving Baylor too many problems. I would say I think that these cornerbacks are going to be more similar to Texas State, if not a little bit better. So it's going to cause Gerry to have to be more accurate, just like he was against Texas Southern. But, the room for error is going to be much slimmer against Kansas. And so it's going to be very important that they take care of the football and really capitalize when they're given the opportunity.
Grayson, what have you thought about Matt Jones through these first 2 games? I mean, in terms of players coming back, there were a long list of names that we knew were going to be impactful guys like Petrie and Ebner, and they all have been. But in terms of like a second level of younger players starting to emerge, I think Matt Jones is one player to watch, and it was very active last week. What are your thoughts on him or perhaps some others you've noticed starting to take a next step?
Yeah, during his recruitment, he was a guy who it seemed very evident that he was going to play some sort of outside linebacker role. That's what Matt Rule recruited him as. That's what he camped as when he came to Baylor camp back during his recruitment. And he really excelled at that. And Matt played outside linebacker at Odessa Permian. He also played middle linebacker there his sophomore season. So he's very versatile. And I think the thing with Matt that we're kind of seeing is that he's just too good of a player to keep off the field. And having Dylan Doyle, having Terrell Bernard, there's just not room for him to be a starter at one of those positions at the Mike or Will. So I think they found a creative way to get him on the field, put him at the Jack linebacker spot. I still think he's a very capable backup at the other 2 spots as well. And I think his future could still be the Mike linebacker spot. But he's too impactful to keep off the field. And you're seeing it. He can pass rush. He can get into the backfield and disrupt things in the run game as well. Just a very good player. And I also think, the fact of the matter is he's an older player. He's been around for a while, and he's a little bit more seasoned. And I like that about him. And I think he's going to be a very good player for this team going forward. And I'll also mention, whenever they do get Garmin Randolph back, which hopefully happens sooner rather than later, I think he and Garmin will be a very nice duo at the jack position, with Garmin playing a little bit of, the end spot as well, and Matt maybe playing a little bit of the Mike and Will. But I think those two guys are going to be very important for this defense going forward.
Grayson, I got one more question, and if we have a couple more, then we move on to another guest. And thanks for joining us today, since you're not going to be here later in the week. The offensive line, that wide zone, we've seen what it's done against teams, again, that they should push around, although they didn't always do that with Texas State. They ran for a lot of yardage. It's the hustle plays. Colt had a video of Khalil Keith going 50 yards down the field. I asked Dave Aranda about it. Those things, to me, are contagious, but also signs of people who want to do what they're doing, play football.
Yeah, and you saw it with that clip that you're talking about. Khalil Keith just running as hard as he can all the way downfield, trying to make those final blocks. And I know there was a clip, I want to say it was last year, where you had John Lovett, sprinting past Treston Ebner on a kickoff return touchdown. I think that was in the opening weekend against Kansas last year. But I think you're seeing signs of it continue under Dave Aranda, guys that really want to win and compete. And to see that from a big guy like Khalil Keith, that is contagious. And I think if you went and watched the film of their first two games, I think you'll see moments where those things are happening somewhat frequently. And I think it needs to continue to happen. This is a team that, has goals, has aspirations. In order to get there, you got to be the hardest working team. And I think you're seeing Baylor really work hard, and I think you're seeing a buy-in out of this entire group. So, yeah, that was great to see. To see someone like Khalil Keith, especially, a guy who, has struggled to really get on the field consistently over his first few years at Baylor. He's really starting to come into his own, and he and Gavin Byers are going to be very important to this offensive line, whether that's, whichever one will be the starting right tackle going forward, and whichever one's going to be depth for the rest of the offensive line. Both of those guys are extremely important, so it's great to see Khalil Keith really have success and really take that role and take initiative, and I really love seeing that.
Every Tuesday, Grayson and Craig do a full hour-plus Bearcast. The podcast is available on the Sikkim365.com in the premium section, elsewhere, also up on Twitter, and then, of course, our Friday guest with recruiting and much more. We'll get back to Grayson a week from Friday again.
Yeah, John Lovett still hasn't played for Penn State. I'm not sure what is going on there, if he's got a COVID thing or if it's an injury or what, but he has not registered a stat in these first couple of weeks. So, we got to watch him at Baylor for 4 years. He actually would have been perfect in this offense. You imagine him, the way John Lovett ran, just straight and fast in this offense.
And physical.
It would have been, my gosh, he would have been great. But, not sure what's going on in Happy Valley with him, but hopefully he sees the field soon.
Well, they have Auburn this week, and if he hadn't played the first couple of games, they had Wisconsin the first week.
Like I said, maybe it's COVID that's kept him out. Who knows?